Let's call the Dubuque County Board of Supervisors into session on Monday, May 10th. It's 9 a.m. And first thing we will do is go to public comments. Is there anyone, a member of the public, who wishes to address the Board of Supervisors? That also includes, of course, our staff and the employees. So public comments, you need to unmute yourself, give a wave, enter a comment into chat so we know you wish to address us, and we'll wait a moment to see if anyone exercises any of those options. Seeing nothing, we will move on to the first agenda item, which is a proclamation. And we have had a request for a proclamation today regarding Crop Walk Day 2021. And I'll read the proclamation into our record. Whereas since 1946, Crop/Church World Service has sponsored walks to collect funds to alleviate hunger overseas and in the United States. And whereas Crop Walk pledges now meet human needs in more than 70 countries with disaster and emergency responses, refugee and immigrant services, economic and social upheaval response. And whereas the Dubuque Rescue Mission, Dubuque Food Pantry, and People in Need will share in 25% retained locally of the total amount collected by walkers. And whereas Dubuque's 2021 annual Crop Hunger Walk will be held starting at Murphy Park, 1700 South Grandview on Saturday, May 22nd, 2021, to help our community become aware of and concerned about hunger and its causes and effects upon us all. And whereas the Crop Hunger Walk will raise funds to help stop hunger, both locally and globally, now therefore we, the Dubuque County Board of Supervisors, do hereby proclaim Saturday, May 22nd, 2021 as Crop Walk Day and urge all Dubuque County citizens to participate with the Dubuque Area Congregations United to support this walk.
I will make a motion to accept the proclamation.
And I will second.
Motion is second to accept the proclamation. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. And I don't know, maybe Dawn, you can help me. Is there anyone present who was going to speak about this event or the proclamation itself?
I do not see anyone online. They just requested that we mail the signed proclamation to them.
Fantastic. All right. Certainly it's worthy about hunger awareness and in the times that we live in. So very good. Thank you for my colleagues. Moving on to looking for a motion to approve the minutes of the May 3rd meeting.
I will make the motion to approve the minutes.
I will second that.
Motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Third item on our agenda are consent items, and we do have one consent item, which is some liquor and beer permits for Graceland Tavern, Fillmore Bar and Grill, Dubuque Driving Range, and Derby Grange Golf. So we can, I think, take care of those in one motion unless someone wishes to draw one of those out for comment.
I will make a motion to approve the consent items.
And I will second.
Motion is second to approve the consent items. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, the motion carries. Next, we have procurement procedures. And Dawn, the first item was going to be proof of publication. There we go. There's where the notices that were published in the papers.
And make a motion to approve the notice of publication or proof of publication.
I will second that motion.
Motion is second, approving proof of publication. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Next item is the receipt of quotes. We'll begin with the receipt of quotes for the 2021 model year large regular cab 4x4 with 8-foot box, 10,000 pound GVWR pickup truck. And I think we'll turn it over to the auditor who's in the boardroom.
Yes, we have 4 total bids for this truck. I do have 3 bids from Turpin Dodge that are unlabeled, so I'm going to take a look real quick here. Just open those and separate them out. Please bear with me.
Of course. Thank you for helping us.
Okay, the first bid is from Turpin Dodge. And that bid amount is $28,464. That's Turpin Dodge, $28,464. The next bid is from Finnan. That bid total is $31,934. That's $31,934. The next bid is from McGrath Ford. That bid is $32,039. $32,039. And the final bid for this vehicle is from Victory Ford. And Victory Ford is $30,657. $30,657.
Okay, I will make a motion to receive the bids and refer those to the county engineer for his recommendation.
And I will second.
Motion and a second to receive the bids and send to the county engineer. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. The next item is receipt of quotes for 2021 model year crew cab half-ton HD 4x4 with 6.5-foot box, 6,800 pound GVWR pickup truck.
We have 4 total bids for this vehicle. The first one from Turpin is $35,022. That's $35,022. The second bid is from Finnan. And that total is $37,472. That's $37,472. Third bid is from McGrath. That bid is $39,710. $39,710. And the fourth bid from Victory Ford. $38,743.98. $38,743.98.
I'd make a motion to receive the bids and forward to county engineer for his review.
I will second that.
You're muted, Ann.
Thank you. Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Our final item under procurement procedures is the receipt of quotes for 2021 model year extended cab half-ton HD 4x4 with 6.5-foot box, 6,900 pounds GVWR pickup truck. And how many do we have, Auditor Dragato?
We have 4 total bids.
Okay,
The first bid is from Turpin. That bid amount is $25,945. $25,945. The second bid from Finnan. $28,987. $28,987. Third bid from McGrath. $31,513. $31,513. And the final bid from Victory Ford. $26,965. $26,965.
I'll make a motion to receive the bids and refer those to the county engineer for his recommendation.
And I will second.
Motion and a second to receive bids and refer to county engineer. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Thank you. The next item on our agenda are public hearings. The first we have is the proof of publication of a public hearing. Is that what you're showing here, Dawn? These are the zoning cases?
Yep, this is what Mary had forwarded on for today's zoning case.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the proof of publication for the public hearings.
And I will second.
motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Next is we are looking for a approval of a notice that I believe was sent to the papers. It concerns a public hearing that will be held for fiscal year 21 budget amendment number 4.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. This is Stella.
Morning, Stella.
Morning,
So-
Stella.
This is the fourth and final amendment of our fiscal year 2021 budget. We're proposing to have a public hearing on Monday, May 24th at the 9 a.m. meeting. I can go this form if you like, or answer any questions.
Does anyone have questions, or otherwise we're looking for a motion to approve that notice setting public hearing?
I make a motion to approve the notice of public hearing for May 24th at 9 a.m.
I will second that.
Motion is second to approve the notice public hearing for the budget amendment number 4. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Next on our agenda is a public hearing for zoning case ZC 03-09-21 William Lawler A1 agricultural to R2 single family residential. And I believe that notice, well, we saw the notice of publication. Our zoning director, Tammy Henry, is present. Good morning, Tammy.
Good morning, everybody. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started. The applicant is requesting rezone from A1 agricultural to R2 single family residential 2 acres to allow William to build a new home on the farm. This property is located adjacent to the city of Centralia along Cox Springs Road and Old Highway Road and is legally described as lot 201 of 2 of Beal subsection 4 T88 North R1E Vernon Township, Dubuque County, Iowa. The property is owned by William Lawler and zoning in the area includes A1 agricultural to the north, the south, and the east, R1 rural residential to the northeast and to the east and to the south, and R2 single family residential to the east. The R1 rural residential to the northeast on zoning case number 9013 of 72 was to rezone 7.5 acres for future residential home sites. And the R2 single family residential to the east on zoning case number 927 of 17 was to rezone from R1 rural residential to R2 single family residential 15.25 acres more or less to divide the home and the buildings and the farmland for an estate purposes. There are no previous rezoning cases attached to this property and there are no special use permits attached to this property. 11 rezoning notification letters were sent to the property owners, and the city of Centralia was notified. Comprehensive Plan, Chapter 9, Agriculture and Natural Resources, page 134, Objective 3.1, and Chapter 8, Housing, page 122, Objective 12.7 may apply to this case. So they're looking to go ahead and come out here and divide out, again, as you can see, for a single family home. And I do know that if you have any questions for me first.
Tammy, what was the
Tammy,
result
if you
of the
could-
zoning board?
The rezoning board agreed upon it 5-0. There was 5 members present and they all approved it. And again, I do know that Dave Schneider is here to represent this and the plat that will follow.
Mhm. And are there other documents you wish to screen share? What we have here is,
No, well, that's that. Dawn, if you could put up, you can see that the one with the red circle around it, which is the buffer, Dawn, that'll show that this is surrounded by the city of Centralia and the city of Piasta. This is just one of those little pieces out there still in the county.
I will make a motion to open the public hearing.
I will second.
motion is second to open public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Dawn, are you able to, there we go. We are now in public hearing. If there's a member of the public who wishes to address the board, you may do so at this time.
Hello, board. This is Dave Schneider, Schneider Land Surveying, 906 First Street North, Farley, Iowa. I'm assuming you can hear me there.
Yes, good morning.
Morning. Yeah, basically working with Bill Lawler and his wife Diane to create a parcel so they're basically consolidating their homes. They both lost their spouses and remarried. And are looking to basically consolidate onto the farm there where Bill and his son operate the dairy business. And so just kind of working with them to acquire access to this property, which they have an entrance permit, locate the house, and obviously create a parcel around it so they can finance it separate from the dairy operation. And this is basically where they want to do it, and it's pretty much in an area that's my assumption will eventually be swallowed up by either Centralia or Piasta, most likely Piasta at some point. But the house is closer to Centralia, so we ran the property through the Centralia City Council. I guess if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
And I will say the city of Centralia was in favor of it.
Are there any questions for Mr. Schneider? Are there other members of the public who wish to address the board? Looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
So
I'll
moved.
moved. I'll second.
Motion is second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, the motion carries. We are now back to the board.
If none of my colleagues have any comments or questions, I will make a motion to approve the rezoning.
I will second.
Motion is second to approve the rezoning. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries.
I will make a motion to suspend the requirement this amendment be considered and voted on for passage at 2 prior meetings.
I will second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries.
I'll make a motion that the amendment be adopted and that the zoning administrator be directed to enter the appropriate changes in the official zoning map, and that the auditor be directed to arrange for the publication of the amendment and portion of the official zoning map as amended in the official county newspapers as required by law.
I will second.
The motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Schneider. We move on to approval of the plots. The first is the resolution for final plat of Lawler Farm subdivision. Tammy, did you want to give us any context? I know these are not necessarily hugely debatable.
Right, and this is the follow-up plat to what you just approved for the rezoning, so I'll go ahead and give you the background. The property is owned by William Lawler and is located adjacent to the city of Centralia and along Cox Springs Road and Old Highway Road with a total of 48.34353 acres surveyed. This property is zoned A1 agricultural and now has been approved with its request to rezone 2 acres to the R2 single-family residential. The purpose of the plat is to separate 1.988 acres to be allowed to construct a single-family home for William. This plat created 2 lots. Lot 1 is a total of 46.365 acres surveyed, and it will remain in current ownership and agricultural use. Lot 2 is a total of 1.988 acres surveyed, and it will be the site for the new home. Lot 1 will use an existing field entrance off of Cox Spring Road, and Lot 2 will use an approved residential entrance on permit number 21-07 off of Cox Springs Road. There were no additions or corrections required for this plat, and the mortgage holder's acknowledgement is signed and attached, and all of the signatures are current. This plat has been reviewed by myself as plat's officer and has all the required signatures. I respectfully recommend approval. So this is just the follow-up to the case that you just heard.
Do we have any questions?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the final plat of the Lawler Farm subdivision.
I will second that.
Motion and a second to approve final plat Lawler Farm subdivision. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Next is a final plat for Farnier Holstein subdivision.
The property is owned by Thomas and Shirley Simon, and it is located adjacent to the city of Farley along Cemetery Road with a total of 79.196 acres surveyed. This property is zoned A1 agricultural. The purpose of this plat is to separate 16.114 acres for a new dairy building being constructed by Thomas and Shirley Simon. The survey creates 2 lots. Lot 1 is a total of 16.114 acres surveyed and will be the site of the new dairy building. Lot 2 is a total of 63.082 acres surveyed, and it will remain in current ownership and agricultural use. Lot 1 will use an approved entrance on permit number 21-12 for the dairy building off of Cemetery Road, and Lot 2 will use a 30-foot wide access easement across Lot 1. There were no additions or corrections required for this plat, and there are no liens or mortgages on the property, and all of the signatures are current. This plat's been reviewed by myself as plat's officer, has all the required signatures, and I respectfully recommend approval. So this is a dairy operation that is going on, and basically they have already pulled the permit to build on this property because they can build on this property. What they're trying to do, and this again would become finance issues and bank separation issues, they're creating the lot so that the dairy farm is not, that's being financed separately from the rest of the farm. And again, Dave Schneider is present, and if you need to speak with him after me, if you have any questions.
Did the zoning board have any issues?
No, they approved it 5-0 again that night.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Schneider? Any other questions?
I will make a motion to approve the final plat resolution.
I will second.
Motion and a second to approve final plat Farnier Holstein subdivision. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Next is a resolution seeking approval of the final plat of Lot 1 of 1 and 2 of 1 of Heritage Acres.
Okay. This property is owned by William and Diane Ernson and is located adjacent to the city of Dyersville along Old Castle Road with a total of 19.29 acres surveyed. This property is owned A1 agricultural and R2 single family residential that was approved on zoning case number 23 of 21. The purpose of this plat is to separate the lot to sell to their daughter and son-in-law to build the new home. The survey creates 2 lots. Lot 1 of 1 has a total of 2.18 acres surveyed and it will be the site of the new home. Lot 2 of 1 has a total of 17.11 acres surveyed and it will remain in current ownership and agricultural use. Lot 1 of 1 will use an approved residential entrance on permit number 20-46, and Lot 2 of 1 will use an approved field entrance on permit number 20-45. There were no additions or corrections required for this plat, and there are no mortgages or liens on the property, and all the signatures are current. This plat's been reviewed by myself as plat's officer, has all the required signatures. I respectfully recommend approval. So this came up on a previous rezoning case. You approved to go ahead and create this little area for them to build a home. And so this is the plat that's coming up following that. If you have any questions for me.
Zoning board had no issues with it, Tammy.
Yeah, no issues with it. Again, this was an approved rezoning that was finalized with you guys, Harley, in February. Or Supervisor Potoff, I apologize.
I'll make a motion to approve the final plat of Heritage Acres.
I will second that.
Motion and a second to approve final plat of Heritage Acres. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
Item number 7 on our agenda, we turn our attention to some action items. The first is a resolution seeking approval of the hiring of deputies, assistants, and clerks. Dawn has screen shared. You can see the resolution before us. Do we have any questions of Dawn?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for the hiring positions.
I will second.
Motion and a second approving hiring of the positions. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Thank you. Next, on to the resolution concerning Progressive Structures LLC for 2021 culvert replacements on various roads. Project L-C22-02-73-31.
I'll make a motion to approve the necessary documents with Progressive Structures.
And I will second that.
Motion a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. The next resolution concerns the necessary documents approving signature with Bard Materials, CJ Moyna and Sons, River City Stone, and Wending Quarries for the supply and deliver maintenance rock for Dubuque County Secondary Road Department. Do we have any questions for the engineer?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
I will second.
Motion and a second to approve the resolution. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Our next resolution is to approve the temporary delayed travel restrictions on county roads on August 11th, 2021 to August 14th, 2021 for Major League Baseball for the 2021 Field of Dreams event. This is the first time this has been before us. Do we have is anyone here to speak for this? I see Sheriff Kennedy, you have turned on your video.
Yeah, good morning. This is something that we brought up. So we haven't heard much about what's going to happen with the Major League Baseball game other than it is going to go. The one thing that they did say, or that I have heard, is originally last year when they were going to do have the game, they were going to have everyone park in in and around the city of Dyersville, and they were going to have a bunch of buses that were going to bus people out to the site. So the only thing that we were going to need to close down last year was Lansing Road, just to allow that bus traffic and then any other traffic directly related to the game. My understanding is now they are going to have people actually park out there at the Field of Dreams. And with an expected attendance of 8,000 people, assuming that there will be at least 2 people per vehicle, that's about 4,000 cars. I'm sure I'm sure families will come out or whatever, so it'll probably be less, but we have to kind of plan for the worst. And so we're planning for 4,000 cars, and there's a limited amount of space to park those cars. And so our thought was, if we blocked it off on Dyersville East Road at both ends of Golf Course Road, that would allow us to control the traffic coming into that area to just game related traffic. And if we needed to create parking along the roadway to accommodate all the people coming to the game, it would allow for that. It would limit the amount of traffic driving up and down the road, and make it a little bit safer for people if they have to park on the road, make it a little safer for them to be walking out there.
Sheriff Kennedy, have you been working with anyone to put this together? Are the field, I mean, the city of Dyersville, are they, also engaged in this discussion with you?
I have not been able to be in on any of the meetings with Major League Baseball. They have kept their group small. The information that was given to me was provided by the chief of police from Dyersville. So, and he has limited information as well. So, I mean, we're just, we're trying to get ahead of this. I know last year when we tried to do a road closure, it was a kind of a last minute thing. And so we just wanted to make sure that we were out in front of it this year a little bit better, so that people, especially people from the area, know what to expect when they go out there. If you look at the overhead view, the number of residences that will be affected will be fairly minimal. Probably between Dyersville East Road and Lansing to Black Hills Road, you're probably talking a dozen residences that will be affected. And obviously there'll be the people going to those residences will be allowed to pass as expected.
I thought last year we had wanted to be sure the city council in Dyersville was aware of this. And is this the same road closure, Sheriff Kennedy, that we talked about last year?
No, last year was just Lansing from Black Hills to Dyersville East, because like I said, the parking was supposed to be all contained within the city of Dyersville. There wasn't supposed to be a bunch of cars out there. So they've changed that plan. And so now we have to plan accordingly. So.
I also recall we had citizens that had given input on this too.
Yes, I think they had some of the, or at least one of the neighbors called in concerned about it. And like I said, the people that live on the road will obviously be allowed to go to and from their residence as needed. But we still have to provide a safe way in and out for the people that are going to be traveling out there. So we think that by controlling the road at those 3 access points, that's the best way to do it.
So this is obviously your recommendation based on your assessment of public safety. If we need to tweak this because the city council in Dyersville has a different request, you would just be back before us if you thought that had merit.
Yes, that's correct. I, like you said, we're trying to get out ahead of it. I don't know what the city of Dyersville is planning on doing, but I mean, essentially, the game is in 3 months. So we've got 3 months to get it figured out. I think part of the issue is, not to knock Major League Baseball, but, they do this every day. And, they don't probably consider the fact that we don't. So, and this being the first year that the game is actually going to happen the way it was intended, we don't know what to expect. So we're trying to, we're going to play it safe. We'd like to play it safe this year, see what happens, see how things kind of pan out. And then, if they have the game again, in the future, then at least we know, and we can base all of our future plans off of this one.
Do my colleagues have any questions?
If
Just a
nothing,
comment that with, we don't know the exact number of the attendance, but with the parking being in close proximity to the field, it will make it much more challenging and difficult on a 2-lane road to get thousands of people in, thousands of cars in and out of there versus last year's plan of busing groups in. So it'll probably be a little more logistics needed for traffic control. So this is a good first start.
Yeah, and looking back at last year's plan, I mean, there were definitely some positives and negatives to it. One of the negatives that we had pointed out was, everybody knows how it is in August in Iowa. You can have a severe thunderstorm pop up at a moment's notice. So, at least by allowing cars to park out there, it gives people a little extra protection and place to go if if a storm pops up. So it was going to be pretty difficult to find enough space for 8,000 people to be protected from a hailstorm.
Well, just like the movie, they had a parade of cars, so
Right,
hopefully.
right, right. Right. And I guess my comment would be that I think I would agree with the sheriff. This is what we think. This is our, and if they have issues with it, then they can come and talk to us about it. But I don't disagree. We should probably get something out and with the sheriff. I don't have any reason to doubt what the sheriff wishes to do. So maybe there's going to be more discussion, but it would be with the sheriff.
Yes, obviously, if anybody has any complaints, they can certainly give me a call. And I understand that we have county taxpayers that live on those roads that'll be affected, and we want to be responsive to them, but we also have a duty to protect people that are in this county as visitors as well. So we're not trying to just bow down to the wishes of Major League Baseball. We're just trying to make this a safe event for everyone that's in the area.
Yeah. If it would need to be shortened up, Joe, we probably could shorten it up to, I can't think of the name of the road that runs to the south off of Dyersville East, where Dyersville East makes the curve and kind of heads, I guess, back northbound. If you block it off at that, where that 3-corner intersection is, if we would need to, if we'd have the option of shortening it up or something, that would work pretty good too, probably.
Yeah, and we thought of that, Harley. The reason why we chose this is if people need to be rerouted, there won't be any turning around or anything. If they need to get around that, they can just shoot up Golf Course Road and pop out on the north side. And that's why we chose this as the shutdown point. Because, otherwise, if you get down in that corner, one way or the other, you're going to have to cross traffic to get turned around. And to get around it at where we have it shut off, you can just take a county road. So that's why we chose that.
Yep. I would make a motion to approve the temporary delayed travel restrictions.
I will second that.
Motion is second to approve temporary delayed travel restrictions on county roads for Major League Baseball Field of Dreams event. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Thank you, Sheriff Kennedy.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Next is our resolution seeking approval of the Iowa DOT pre-construction agreement number 2021-C-085 for project number NHSX-136-3-54-3H-31 on US 52, Iowa 136.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
I will second.
Motion is second to approve resolution as presented. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. The next resolution is to approve the master co-location and shared services agreement between Dubuque County and the city of Dubuque. I think this was before us last week in a draft form for us to see the strikes. Do we have any further discussion before we entertain a motion? I know our IT director is with us if we have questions.
I saw that CJ did, I guess, approve the contract. I'd make the motion to approve the master co-location and shared services agreement.
And I will second that.
Motion is second to approve the resolution. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Thank you. The
Thank you.
final, thanks, Nathan. The final resolution is to authorize myself to sign the grant agreement with USDA NRCS for watershed and flood prevention operations, the WFPO award. I believe we have a work session on this a little later. Am I correct about that? We have an
Supervisor
update,
McDonough, this is
perhaps.
Ed Raber. The work session will be on other issues, not this.
Thank you. Do my colleagues have any questions about this? And do you feel, I think the agreement was in the packet as well. I don't know that we're going to negotiate a whole lot with NRCS.
I wouldn't mind an overview from either Ed or Eric if they wanted to provide a 1-minute overview.
Is Eric on the call yet? Is Eric in our meeting? I know he's going to be part of our work sessions. Ed, were you expecting Eric Schmeckel to be present?
I am expecting Eric to be present for the work session.
Ed, can you provide context, just a little background? It seems like a wonderful thing, and talk a little bit about the county's involvement, our match, and what we should expect from this program.
Thank you, Supervisor. The agreement is the statement of work. Eric and I worked with NRCS a couple of months ago to draft, after their first contact with us in November, to draft a statement of work. That was mostly reflecting the application that we submitted that was approved by the previous Board of Supervisors last, I think it was August, that we submitted to the NRCS that was successful. So that required a fair amount of tweaking to make sure that it was in alignment with what we had applied for. The NRCS then took that and sent it off. They reviewed it internally in Iowa, and then they sent it off to Washington, D.C., which resulted in the general terms and conditions being added to the contract that we had not seen until they submitted that to us about a week and a half ago. I've gone through it with a fine-tooth comb to look over what they sent back to us and how that compared with the work that we did to make sure it was in alignment with our application, and it is. So this is not a scope of work. That is what we will develop with the consultant that you select at a later time, perhaps next month. And this is just stating the sort of work and how it will be done. So it is both a general but a specific document, but it is not saying it is not a scope of actual work that will be developed by you later.
Thank you. Do we have other questions for Mr. Raber?
Yes, I do have one question, maybe just confirm this. So what I'm seeing is it's $600,000 from the federal government, and then an in-kind match of $50,000 from existing staff and personnel from Dubuque County and or contractual relationships around our water quality issues. Is that right, Ed?
That is correct.
Yeah, so it's an excellent opportunity to get $600,000 in federal funds coming in to help our county related to our flooding and our water quality issues. So very supportive and very appreciative of all the time and energy that went into getting this grant.
Any questions, Supervisor Potoff?
I have nothing. I also echo Supervisor Wickham's thing. There's a lot of work that went into this, and it's a great opportunity for the county to work on our flood mitigation issues and soil conservation.
Does anyone wish to make a motion to approve the resolution?
I'll make the motion to approve the resolution.
And I will second that.
Motion is second to approve the resolution. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye, that motion carries. Thank you, Ed. Next on our agenda are communication items. We have a report from Greater Dubuque Development Corporation, and we also have a manure management plan from 2 different entities.
I'll make a motion to receive and file the Greater Dubuque Development 2027 plan.
I will second.
Motion a second to receive and file Greater Dubuque Development Plan. All in favor, say aye.
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 That motion carries. We also have the manure management plans for Phillips Pork Production, number 69268, and Andy Ray, site 29239.
I'll make a motion to we receive and file.
I will second that.
Motion a second to receive and file. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Next are the appointments, the open vacancies as of April 15th. Information only. Does anyone wish to address anything there? I did see the press release on the TH this morning indicating our request for folks to come forward. If there's no comment, we'll move on to item number 10, personnel requisitions. We do not have any for this meeting. There are no tabled or pending items. We conclude our meeting, our formal meeting portion with another opportunity for the public to address the board on any item that is not on the agenda. If anyone wishes to do so, they can unmute themselves and or comment in chat or enact video and give us a wave. On Zoom, you would go to reactions and raise your hand. We'll wait a few moments to see if anyone wishes to participate. I do not see anyone doing any of those activities, so we can continue right into our work sessions, as the first work session is scheduled for 9:45 a.m., which is the boards and commissions updates from the supervisors basically to each other concerning the boards and commissions that we serve on. Is there anything that we wish to, obviously very generically, address between the work that we're doing?
I'd be happy to fill in a little bit about Travel Dubuque. And so Travel Dubuque informally has been, I guess, serving as a conduit with Major League Baseball and Dyersville and other people involved with the Field of Dreams game. And so Keith Ray and others have presented basic overviews. And so if the board or anyone else has any specific questions, I'd be happy to field those. And that might be a forum to be able to get questions answered if needed.
Harley, do you have anything you wish to share?
I have really nothing for the past week here. Brought up last week about grants for the DRA are open now. Other than that, I have nothing.
Right, and I wanted just to mention at this time about the Central Iowa Juvenile Detention Center. We did have and that's a board that I have served on and you serve on now. They submit their claims and we saw them in the list. I did pull one to make sure that they were doing the proper notifications. That was a big issue in the fall and last year. It resulted in a $20,000 credit being returned to Dubuque County. You know, for we didn't overpay. I just also had held those last year. The issue is whether or not they give us proper notification of when they change rates for juveniles. So we get some individuals down there in juvenile detention, they don't behave themselves, they escalate things and the price goes up. And we've just made sure that we get advance notice before they just start billing us. So that's the difference between last fall and this last week when I held those. So confirmed independently that they are giving our juvenile court officers advance notice and keeping them up to date on how people are doing. So we're not getting surprise bills. They are big whopper bills, but they are not surprises. So just wanted to close that circle. I know you got you were drawn into that, Supervisor Potoff, looking at the claims yourself. So otherwise, I would just mention to my colleagues, RTA did meet Wednesday, and I also participated in a TAG quarterly meeting, the Transit Action Group, and we're seeking some board members to participate in TAG who have greater diversity and greater background, you know, folks that are, you know, again, trying to push inclusivity, look for vulnerable communities, and realize that the TAG board's pretty generic and pretty static. And so that's a concept, but good meetings and good discussion about how we can improve the mission and the purpose of RTA, those 33 buses. So good things there. Attended Food Policy Council. I know, Harley, I think I saw you on Zoom as well. And then, of course, Wednesday night we had the Board of Health meeting, and just reporting back, some good discussion about Food Policy Council. Michaela Freiberger, who is the chair of that commission, was there to present an overview for the Board of Health, and we have several new members. So I think that was good. She did an amazing job, and I think addressed the connection kind of maybe loose in terms of oversight. But I would tell my colleagues that our Associate Health Director, Samantha Cloft, has been appointed to the Food Policy Council as an ex officio member. So that tie's been made, I think, more permanently in an ex officio capacity, but still we have it. So there's a direct link there. And then they did unanimously approve the contract. So we're going to have a contract services to assist the Food Policy Council in I think a professional way with Limestone, Bluffs RC&D. So good things happening there with Lori Scoville's group. So I thought that was a really positive step forward. And of course, the last thing that comes to mind, I'm sure we're all watching this, is as our state legislatures, we don't have a budget. State doesn't have a budget yet, and now they are into overtime, as I like to say. It's in the and Shannon Lundgren posted this morning, she didn't think it was going to be this week maybe either that they get that done. So we're going to be 2 weeks into overtime with no state budget. But lots of things affecting the backfill. The governor's plan does eliminate the backfill officially, and also how the funding will be for our mental health and disability services. Is that going to be funded by the state through their general fund or whatever? So I'm assuming that we are all paying close attention to that and recognizing we don't have much ability to make change. We're just kind of waiting for those governmental entities to come to some solution, but likely that'll be major impact on us and our county budget processing for those, going forward. So if anybody has a better crystal ball and wishes to share, to give comfort or question, I would accept that from my colleagues. So the UCC meetings have been helpful to attend. They were informative last week, just kind of, again, trying to share the context of the governor's press conference and what you might have heard from some of our legislative team. So that pretty much concludes what my week was. Ended up out at the emergency respondent drive-through with their fundraiser dinner to go. And I saw our silent auction item was very well received. So good job from Harley, you did that. So thank you for doing it around the county package that folks were able to bid on. So
I went through that also, and the food was terrific.
So any other thoughts or comments? Does that raise anything else in people's minds of things they want to have general discussion?
Hey, and this is Joe again.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to point out, just in general discussion, is I want to thank Supervisor Potoff for heading up the trash cleanup along Highway 52 North. Looked like on Facebook there that looked like they found quite a bit of stuff alongside the road. So it takes a lot to get volunteers together and do a project like that. And just want to tell him that we appreciate him taking the steps necessary to get it completed. So thanks.
Well done. Thank
Thanks.
you, Joe. Very good. Well, we have a few moments. If we have nothing else, we can take a brief recess, and we'll be back at 10 o'clock for the COVID update. Looking for then a motion.
I will make that motion to recess till 10.
I will second.
Motion and a second to recess until 10 a.m. All in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. See everyone back at 10 a.m. Thank you. Harley, how many volunteers did you have for your cleanup?
Probably around 20.
Oh, fantastic.
It went well. It took a long time due to the amount of garbage that was there.
Yeah.
Pretty sad.
I saw somebody walk in Monastery Road yesterday. We were out that way and collected trash out that way too. It's wonderful.
Great.
Okay, well, we'll come back into session, and we have a work session scheduled at 10 a.m., which is our standard time for our brief COVID update. Go to a second screen here. Patrice, I see you're with us. You're unmuted. Good morning. We hear you.
Good morning, everyone. Good enough. I hope everyone did have a good past weekend, and now the warm weather will be approaching. Yay. So that's even better. I know Tom Berger and Samantha are on the call as well. Stacy had another conflict, so she will not be able to join us this morning, but we'll just share a few highlights with you. As you probably saw on Friday when the incident management team sent out their weekly update, when Samantha actually sent it out, you will see that with our total Dubuque County population of 16 and older, we are at 61% that have completed their series or are currently in the process. And with that population of 65 and older, we are at 89% that have either completed their series or else they're in the process of completing their series. And we also had shared with you that Dubuque County is one of the leading counties in the COVID vaccinations throughout the state of Iowa. So we cannot thank our vaccine providers enough. They have been wonderful. And we do think the incident management team does believe that because we are seeing numbers decreasing as far as our walk-ins to our pod area, we are going to continue looking at more of the vaccine providers going to the events that are occurring in Dubuque County. The firefighters did set up at the farmers market on Saturday, and Diane Pape Freiberger and Katie Jones from the Board of Health did assist them. We did have 14 people who did take the vaccination, and you kind of on one end of the spectrum think, oh, really? Only 14? But then on the other end of the spectrum, you have to celebrate because that's another 14 that did indeed get vaccinated. So we will continue advertising any possible way that we can for all of our different walk-ins that we will continue to have at the Yonkers Pod, as well as going to different locations, such as Kaminsky Park, the old funeral home down by Jackson Park. We are just looking at different areas and different events. Unity Point will be taking their mobile unit to the Friday food truck day, I guess, this coming up Friday. So with that, the incident management team would like to recommend ending the contract with the Grand River Center for our drive-through. We did have approximately, I want to say, around 400, maybe 500 people that did participate in that event. But again, we are just really being conscientious of the cost, and what does work, what doesn't work. And we just believe that going to where the people are right now is the most effective way. And the firefighters will continue to help us with the vaccinations. I know that their schedules are getting busier as the summer is starting to pick up with their events, but we will continue to look at different sites that the firefighters can actually help us along with the other vaccine providers throughout the county of Dubuque. So we do know that there is a 21-day agreement in that lease. So I will just need to know what my next step should be, or if the Board of Supervisors contacts Corey Burbach at the city, or if Corey contacts you, or whatever the case may be, if you do indeed approve of our recommendation. We're also then looking at discussing how long we should keep our pod open at Yonkers. Again, we know that there's costs associated with that site, but right now our vaccine providers continue to use Yonkers for their boosters. They still have large amount of groups coming in for the month of May for receiving those boosters. We do meet with the vaccine providers on a weekly basis, as you are aware. And last week we were discussing that we may even see as early as this week. I know discussions are starting this Wednesday. If indeed Pfizer would get the approval for our 12 to 16-year-old population, we'll probably wait to hear what that decision is before even looking at maybe possibly ending our Yonkers pod site. Now, our healthcare providers have said that they right now, if it were to be approved for that 12 to 16 or 12 to 15, they would probably have their population of their patients come to their office. But because we don't know when this might be approved, hopefully, like I said, this week, but it might not be until the end of the summer or whatever the case may be. We just have to wait to hear the news this week. We, though, will continue to look at possibly only having walk-ins out at the Yonkers site, maybe with a VNA on Fridays for the month of June. But again, please know that we're being very conscientious with that cost as well. And we will share a plan with you once we get the rest of the pieces of this puzzle together regarding the pod at Yonkers itself. We continue to use every possible way to educate the public and inform them of the places where our vaccine providers will be with our walk-ins. At the end of this week, we're going to do one more big postcard push for all of the residents in the county who would have a mailing address. And on that, we're again advertising our sleeves up for our vaccine navigators. If people just want to call there, the staff from the city of Dubuque will find a place that those people can go in and receive a vaccine. We will continue to advertise when our vaccine providers that are pharmacists give us their schedules with all of their walk-ins as well. So right now, we're just really trying to educate public that, the vaccines are free. Right now, people 16 and older are eligible, and you don't have to come to us anymore. We're coming to you. So we're doing our schedules to assist them in their schedules of getting the vaccines. So I think that's pretty much all of the updates that I have to share today, unless Tom or Samantha would have anything that I missed. Okay. Hearing none, I guess we would take any questions, or if you have any comments or concerns.
Do my colleagues have any questions or comments?
Well, I would, this is Supervisor Putoff, Patrice, I would, I guess, look for you to get out of the contract at the Grand River if we're not using it, try to cut some of the expenses there.
Absolutely, and I'll just have to find out from probably Stella or Dawn what the next step needs to be.
I'd be interested in hearing from the city. They were the ones that came to us with this request. So I would definitely want to hear their vantage point. I certainly appreciate and respect the incident management team opinion on this greatly, but I would very much want to hear what the city of Dubuque has to say.
Sure, and I know at last week in our discussions too, Corey can put something into the packets of the Board of Supervisors that you would have then for next Monday as well. We can have that placed in the packet.
Patrice, we be keeping the $15,000 call line regardless of what happens to the pod?
The incident management team would like to keep that because we do think that's very beneficial, not only for arranging appointments, but for also answering any questions that they have. And we have advertised that, so we would hate to see that come to closure at this time.
Well, we purchased it, right? It was a
Correct.
$15,000 expenditure. So I'd like you to, honestly, I'd like you to feel a little more confident that it's going to stick around than you
Yep.
know, you'd like to, and you hope so. So please advocate for us that's, you know, we think it's probably very important that remain, you know, throughout the duration as we, you know, try to get to the end of the vaccination phase of this response.
Absolutely. And I don't know the extent, but I know conversation has occurred with the with Corey and with Stacy Killian at the VNA to be able to utilize that for setting up Stacy's appointments at her clinic for the immunizations as well.
Right. And so I'd like to just like to make a couple comments on the mailer going out later this week. We've got some unknowns. I mean, no one's asking me when to mail the mailer, but it would seem that we'd need to know some pretty basic information, like is the phone number staying in? And we still have made no steps to making there be a permanent walk-in location that you can advertise in a mailer going to every address, like, you know, to make that formal announcement that you can always get a vaccine here. I understand and applaud you want to go to where people are, but seems like kind of tying that down would be an important piece of information to put out. Comment would be, and a question actually to my colleague, Supervisor Wickham. Congratulations. I saw on Facebook you had a daughter graduate, so you've got a returning college student. And you know how those kiddos are coming home, and how do they get vaccinated? Do we have a message reaching out to parents who have their college kids returning back? Any thought on that, Jay?
Well, thank you for the shout out for Avery Lynn Wickham, graduated from Iowa State. I wish she was coming home. She is heading to California. So she's not coming home, but what we do related to colleges, that'd be a good question for the incident management team and the Board of Health.
Patrice, do you have a messaging campaign for those college kids that are coming home?
We don't have one in concrete except for our general information that we've been getting out for everyone 16 and older. We're hoping that if those college students do come home, that the parents would have the information to be able to share. We continue to meet with our higher ed population, and when we do have those meetings, you know, and they are helping us immensely. We are telling them to please share the message that if the students that they have already on campus are planning on staying in Dubuque County, whether they're taking summer courses or working, to continue to follow through. If they did indeed receive their first vaccination, they need to get their booster. And also they are assisting us in getting all of our sites out that Randy Gale puts out in our every other day update. And we do share, though, anything that comes through, we do share with the higher ed of any events that would be occurring.
Right, but the higher education, those campuses are emptying literally this week, I think, with graduations last weekend, this weekend. So, you know, the message, just to reiterate, I mean, maybe we need to meet those people where they are when we know they're going to be gathering, and maybe we can encourage a gathering at an outdoor event where they get vaccinated, you know, make a gift to their parents and their grandparents.
Mm-hmm. We will talk about that, Ian, or Supervisor McDonough. Thank you.
Also, I will be on the radio later this week. If you, you know, maybe by Thursday morning can get me anything you want me to be able to say.
Sure,
About next week, it would be good to be looking around the corner. That question I'm sure will come up.
we will do that. Thank you.
I congratulate you on the 61%, and I also, would shout out to the providers who've done an excellent job of reaching out to our oldest citizens. It's hard to look back a bit just to say, there was a time when I think it was frustrating to know that all the vaccines that were coming were going to folks that were 90 and over, and then 85 and older, and why weren't our parents being called? And yet through that methodical outreach, we've ended up with 89% of our oldest vaccinated, and that's a true home run. So thank you, Patrice, and please pass that on to the providers. That's
Absolutely.
exceptionally well done.
I will do
Yeah, I
that.
would
Thank
definitely-
you.
I would definitely echo that. That was on my mind as well, just the milestone and the steps we've taken. And so appreciated that. I wanted to acknowledge it. But my follow-up question is, does the incident management team or the Board of Health have a goal or a number that we're trying to reach in those categories? And so what would be the recommendation from that group, those two groups, that we should try to strive for?
Yes, I can answer that. The Board of Health, they are looking at what should be a percentage. Overall, 100% would be perfect, but we know that we would never reach that. But the Board of Health members are looking at the percentages. It's just very difficult, even when we look at what a herd percentage would be, because there's just so many other factors that are playing into this. But we do keep them up to date with all of our percentages, as we do you as well. But as far as coming up, with an ideal, this would be a perfect percent, of this population or overall or whatever. To my knowledge, the Board of Health has not gotten to that number. We're just continuing to get that number higher and higher and higher. So, but I will be glad to ask them at our next Board of Health meeting.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions for members of the incident management team? Thank you, Patrice.
Uh-huh. Thank you.
Thanks, Patrice.
Thank you.
Continuing on the agenda, we have a 10:15 work session with Eric Schmeckel to discuss the program update for our watershed program. And there you are, Eric. Good morning.
Good morning.
We can hear you
Thanks.
fine. So if you'd like to go ahead and begin.
Well, thanks for the time. It's been a few weeks here since our last conversation, so always happy to chat with you and provide updates on some of the watershed activities that myself and the team has been working on. This past week, you got a memo kind of discussing, first of all, on the Eco Services Fund. As you remember, out of the $390,000, $140,000 was set aside into a bucket for eco services or structural programs. And the last really 6 to 8 weeks, we've, as Truterra and the Soil Water Outcome Fund are now fully allocated for fiscal year 21, working with those producers on the soil health practices. Our focus has shifted more into the structural programs and really diving in and utilizing Houston Engineering's data, all the different landowner map packages, the watershed implementation packages, and looking at areas throughout Dubuque County and trying to align that information with willing landowners that would like to utilize the funding source of installing conservation practices. So we received our first application. This was a project in conjunction with NRCS. NRCS, the landowner had applied, Ashley Hoffman is her name. She had applied to federal EQIP dollars for a grade stabilization structure, is what NRCS calls it, but also would be known as building a dike to capture sediment and store water and release water at a slower rate. In this case, in the Little Maquoketa watershed. So we have partnered with NRCS, their technicians, as well as our conservation agronomist, Zach Tim, has been out on site, has begun surveying a project out there. And while today I do not have a full cost estimate on this project, there's been some rough numbers thrown out there, as you'll see in the memo provided, roughly $100,000 for the construction of a grade stabilization structure. And then Ashley has also applied for stream bank and buffer establishment along the Little Macocata River in the lower Little Macocata watershed as well too, estimated at around $40,000 right now. Those are very rough preliminary numbers right now. Don't have any concrete numbers as the cost estimate for neither one of this project has been completed from NRCS. So today's action, what I'm asking for from the Dubuque County Supervisors is feedback and discussion on this project on the Eco Services Fund, and essentially would like the support from ideally all three of you to continue collaborating with NRCS on this project, and have them begin the design phase, the engineering phase of both projects on Ashley's application. We have, utilizing Houston engineering data, we have mailed out roughly 30 landowner letters, and how we prioritize this as we started to engage with landowners is we had our top 100 flood control structures. We had our top 100 water quality control practices located throughout Dubuque County. And then we combine those two to get a water quality, water quantity benefit back to Dubuque County. So we came up with our top 100 landowners. And then we had a few meetings with our local NRCS and IDOL staff that had relationships with a number of different landowners in the area, and basically started to look at site by site throughout Dubuque County and get more additional discussion using LiDAR aerial photography information and really landowner willingness to kind of start to engage landowners. I have gotten, I started a wait list now. An engineering request has been put into a few other sites in Dubuque County where landowners have engaged with us and would like to schedule field visit and go back, continue the conversation and look for state, federal, or local dollars that could be used for some of these projects. So that has been done. I would say that the Houston engineering data is becoming very useful. There's a lot of ground truthing that needs to happen through the models that have been explored, but it has been very useful information as we look at where our most cost-effective measures, conservation measures that can take place for structural projects. So I will stop there. That's kind of where we sit today. Like I said, there is not a final dollar amount. We're at the point in this project where we would come back to you after we receive the application, get feedback, and then hold off on NRCS with a full engineering design until we fully have your support moving forward. I'll pause there and open it up for discussion.
Yeah, Eric, this is Supervisor Wickham. Yeah, I greatly appreciate you bringing this project to us. It's kind of one of our first real life examples that we have on a per parcel basis. And so if my colleagues would be open to it, I would be very interested in just you stepping through the package document that talks about the ACDF practices, the phosphate reductions, the nitrogen reduction for maybe just 5 minutes, because I think it's a real good case study on how we'd be able to move forward in those high priority areas and what are some of the outcomes and what's briefly the science behind it.
I am good with that.
Are you guys okay with that, Supervisor McDonough,
Yep.
Supervisor Potoff? I don't want to.
No, I think we should be having this discussion. I think that's just, one of the ongoing conversations to have here this morning. So please.
Great.
let me share my screen. Okay, hopefully everyone can see, and hopefully everyone, I don't know if you have it in front of you or not, or had any problems downloading the landowner information packets. But I'll start by saying this. Every farm in Dubuque County has these landowner information packets. This was part of the hydrology study that was completed by Houston for Dubuque County. So this study, I believe the final report was submitted at the end of October of last year, and it's a lot of information, and it can really be, it's a heavy GIS lift. It can really be broken down into a couple different ways as we look at parcel by parcel information on prioritizing where certain projects could get located. So the ACPF and the PTM app were the two models that were ran in Dubuque County with Houston and with FEMA. FEMA, I believe, contributed $30,000 to this project, and really uses LiDAR information, soils, slope, cropping history of every parcel in Dubuque County, and then looks for ways where potentially structural projects such as wetlands, ponds, sediment basins, buffers could be located. That being said, we received all this information back in October, and our primary focus going back to this pyramid is starting with the foundation of soil health, which is where where both the Terra program and the soil water outcome funding programs are looking at the foundations of soil health, cover crops, no-till, all those things. But then we move up into controlling water in the fields, and then we look at controlling water below fields. So we're looking at now, we know it starts with soil health. Now we look at how we prioritizing and targeting structural projects in the watershed. So that every one of these, every parcel, and I should say they're broken up by landowner parcels. They do not identify the landowner on the parcel, but we're able to look at our top 100 or top 200 or whichever fragment we want to prioritize. We can go into a GIS layer, we can go into our mapping program, and then start to dig up and align the landowner map packages with this. So it looks essentially at, when it looks at these parcels, when we look at structurals, it looks at gully erosion, ephemeral erosion, it looks at, the cropping history of the fields, and then it starts to kind of look at sediment risk, flow lines and acres to the flow lines. Obviously looks at feasibility of conservation practices and starts to identify sites on here, and then starts to make, I would say at a very high level, reductions in sediment and phosphorus and nitrogen based on that. So it's using the modeling, it's using soil health, it's using cropping history to look at sediment reductions here. We're greater than 24 tons a year at certain sites throughout the watershed by having, let's say, this is identified as a wetland. Wetland is one management practice. As we dive into what that landowner would be willing to do, we start to work with them back and forth on a site design and location and cost and all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of where the engagement with NRCS comes in as well. So this, I look at the landowner map packages as very useful information for starting the conversation, for discussing things with the landowner. But there's still a lot of ground truthing that has to happen. And then priorities for that landowner and priorities for NRCS and the watershed program have to start to kind of find that balancing point and try and meet in the middle of where we're at. So that's, in a nutshell, they're useful map packages. there's still a lot of ground truthing that needs to get done and engagement that needs to happen on these sites.
Eric, and what you have pulled up right now, explain to a sixth grader how this makes water in Iowa cleaner.
Sure. So as you guys can see here, this is very close to the spot that the grade stabilization structure pond would get built and constructed. So as we look at our flow lines coming down, I believe this is right around 150 to 160 acres that is draining down to this point here. This is the Little Macocata River right here. And when we start to predict certain rain events and certain flood events and water quality of sediment leaving a site, leaving these gullies, leaving these fields, we start to model how much is actually making its way to the Little Macocata River. We also start to model and predict what kind of flow rate, that how much steepness, how much flow is actually entering the Little Macocata River from these tributaries. Based on that information, we then say, if we built a pond here and we slowed water down and we throttle down the rate that it can actually make it to the Little Macocata River, so we're storing water, we then can calculate a flood reduction. We can start to model nitrogen reductions like we see here. So by having native prairie establishment around here, by having water and built above our Little Macocata River system, we then can start to calculate how much is going to drop out for nitrogen, phosphorus, sediment, different things. What are the conservation impacts by installing a project like this? We can also do it, as you can see here, this is identified as a buffer area. Here's the Heritage Trail. I believe this area right through here is a high contender for stream bank stabilization. So landowners in the past typically have always came to NRCS or FSA or the district and said, I'd like to apply for funding. I have a project that I'd like to do. And then we start the conversation. Whereas using this information that we have from Houston for all of Dubuque County, we can start to prioritize our sites throughout Dubuque County, looking at where are potentially our most cost-effective measures located. But also it goes hand in hand with just landowner willingness. So it's kind of using this data as much as we can and then figuring out who owns the property and having those conversations, who rents the property and so forth from there.
Where approximately is that at, Eric?
This is just north of the city of Epworth. So I just kind of backing out, it's kind of, yeah, it's just north of Epworth. I guess it would be just a little northeast of Epworth, right on the Little Macocata. I believe that water is the lower Little Macocata River.
All right. How many acres does that structure encompass?
Right around 160 right now.
Okay.
I don't know as far as like pool size, and even I'm a little hesitant, and you did not see it in the memo. I did not get into any of the nitrogen, phosphorus, sediment reductions. I will get more detailed in that as we look at the engineering of the project itself, and looking at buffers. That's when some more of the math gets run. Russell 2 calculations get run. This is really good information, but we'll try and get more specific information on a structure like this at the time of engineering, when we start actually putting the numbers and building the structure.
So is this a property owner that would rank high on our priority list to approach and say, we've got some ideas that, I mean, is this a high scoring project, landowning project?
Yes, it would score high. It was not on the top 100 combined water quality and flood reduction projects. And I think there's, when we developed this mechanism with Houston, if you guys remember, one of the first steps was identifying resource points. So we identified all these resource concerns and resource points across Dubuque County. Anytime we had a willing landowner that was willing to do a project, that would be willing to engage with federal, state, local governments to have a project built on their property, it would be an identified resource point, and it would pretty typically would get it would move them into the medium to high category, because that's oftentimes the most difficult aspect of what we're trying to do is landowner willingness, landowner engagement. So we move them typically to medium high. Really, this site was not identified at the time. Landowner is a female that is not the owner of the property. I believe it's her mother, who I believe is in hospice at the current time, and she has the power of attorney on the decision-making abilities for the farm right now, and was discussed with this project with NRCS technicians and conservation staff there. And then as we started to dive into some of our other projects, this one was based on feedback from NRCS and myself and others. This one kind of came to the top of the list right now for what I felt like was a very good project to kind of kick off and start the eco services fund. And I know it's in its first year. I know like all good programs in its first year, you typically evolve and get better. But I think this is a very good start, utilizing the information that we have right now and the willingness of a landowner to engage in a project.
You just gave me some new information. Sadly, the landowner is on hospice. We probably have an estate issue here, right? So, when we work with someone on a project of some of the numbers we're talking about, this is not a simplistic landowner agreement, potentially, depending upon heirs and so forth. So that presents kind of I would say that's a wrinkle that we need to explore to make sure that we don't start down a path with someone who's not going to end up being the landowner.
Yeah, I believe, right now, based on our understanding, so how we deal with these sites is we follow the exact same methods. My recommendation would be to follow the exact same methods on the federal application process. So once they have the power of attorney and they have the ability to make decisions on the farm and so forth, keep in mind, any kind of project that would get built and that would be funded from a federal, local, or state entity, they would be signing a maintenance agreement with it as well too. I believe the state maintenance agreements, I think in my memo I referenced a 10 on the application, I think 10-year, but I believe it's a 20-year maintenance agreement. So meaning that once if the power of attorney is accepted and so forth, we would follow FSA and NRCS's federal guidelines on ensuring that projects are in the right name and are identified under that right person and are being signed off on by the correct maintenance agreement as well too.
And I don't mean to belabor this, Eric, but it's not just about whether or not someone has the authority to sign. It's whether or not that power of attorney is going to cease when her mother passes, right? And so is it an unnecessary complication for our very first case? Could we visit with the county attorney to make sure that we do know what we're likely to face? In my case, you'd be dealing with 12 siblings. Good luck with that, right? If this were my family farm.
Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit further with NRCS as well too, because I'm sure in fact, I know they have been through several different scenarios with landowners and the transfer of ownership and what that all means for decision-making capabilities on a farm. It relates to all programs, CRP, any structural projects, all of that. They've been through this several times. So I I will communicate with Teresa Weiss and with Russ Overton as the NRCS technician to make sure that the application is filled out correctly and that we are doing things correctly on their end. I will say today, yeah, go ahead.
Eric, so this is awesome. Yeah, so this is awesome, and it is one. And so when do you anticipate having others? Obviously, this is a voluntary and a landowner willing program, unless it's public land, which, you know, then we should look at those opportunities too if they score well. But when will we be seeing other projects? I like the one we have. I'm glad to have one and be able to review and understand better about what the benefits are. But when will we be seeing more structural programs like this?
Good question. We have, as of right now, I have 4 more additional projects that are slated for, I have engineering requests into NRCS to do a more thorough investigation with site analysis and field verification. Two landowners up near the Sherrill Balltown area have reached out to me based on letters that they received and are very interested in learning more. We also have one landowner south of Dubuque County that's interested in a sediment control basin. And then last week we had met with New Mallory Abbey, who if you guys know, New Mallory owns quite a bit of agricultural ground, over 2,000 some acres, I believe. We had met with Dave Rudin, who is their retired farm manager. Zach and myself spent some time looking at their fields, talking about saturated buffers, talking about buffers along 2 different streams. And we are continuing to work with them, as well as Andrew and Marissa Waldo, our conservation planners, on giving the monks a more detailed analysis and hopefully providing them with really useful information that would relate back to farming and conservation on their farm. So we've got a few projects kind of in the works. I would say, you know, we're waiting on field analysis and more information. These things don't always happen as quick as they like to. When you get into the structural projects, there's often a lot to consider with design, with soils, trees, timing of the year. You know, there's a lot of obstacles that can come up. So we have, you know, we've been funding Catfish Creek projects for the last, you know, I don't know, 7 or 8 years in the Catfish Creek Watershed Authority Board. And we get some really good projects, and NRCS goes out and we get the green light and the support from our board. And then NRCS will go out and they'll start engineering the document, and they'll come back sometimes with a really high cost estimate, or they'll do some soil borings and the soils just aren't going to work out for the site, and the project unfortunately doesn't happen. So that happens as well too. Today is just about, you know, kind of highlighting where we're at in this process and getting your support to move forward with this specific project. But I would say in the next 2 to 3 weeks, it's really busy. Farmers are continuing to be, you know, it's a very busy time of year for NRCS as well too. When we get some more of the field analysis done, I ideally would be coming back with a few more projects as well too, depending on kind of where our funding levels, you know, kind of shake out here with several of these projects.
Great. I look forward to seeing those projects in the future. Thank you for that update.
Eric, if I might just ask a few more questions about this landowner you have here, what we're proposing to green light and move forward on is everything that we see here, or just specific recommendations? I mean, there's a lot more recommended than the dike, right?
Well, they have, you know, through this, it's, you know, I think it gets into basically stream bank stabilization, wetland, or where the pond would be located here, and then establishing a buffer around the pond. I did talk to the landowner about that, and establishing a buffer along the Little Macokota, where some of the stream bank stabilization has been identified here on this map. Landowner, my conversation with Ashley went well. She was very much in support of including buffers along the water body and on the Little Macokota. They also, NRCS also referenced protecting Heritage Trail. I don't know, the amount of work that has to go into that stream bank yet. But I would, at this point, my recommendation is to proceed with both those projects and have NRCS engage and start the engineering process. Like I said, it's a process that they have to go through. But really today's meeting is about the support of the supervisors with this new program, that they can continue and feel that the funding will be there if the project, if the project is good to go and everything seems to be working out.
I would be in support of it, Eric. It's a great start. We have to start somewhere, and try to keep moving forward, and hopefully we get more farmers can qualify for it or are willing to do it.
Yeah, that.
I would second that. I would agree.
Well, that's great to hear. If there is, I'm open to any other conversation or any suggestions on how we kind of proceed moving the eco services program to the next level. And like I said earlier, I think it's a program that will probably evolve over time. I'm hopeful that we get a list of 10 willing landowners, and we're having to start to get to the point of ranking out programs and projects and using the Houston data even more. But I think it's a brand new program. Our focus started with the soil health initiatives, and now we're moving to structural projects. I think it's a really good start, and I'm excited to see how things kind of shake out here in the next couple of weeks or so with some of these other projects as well.
Eric, can you tell me, did all of the landowner reports, were those mailed?
Were they mailed?
How did a landowner, did they all go out? Did my father-in-law get one?
No, the landowner reports, they can be pretty overwhelming for someone that doesn't understand any of this information and starts to, I think as we've talked about in the past, we have to be careful about how we're sharing and presenting this information, that it doesn't come across that here's another government agency telling me how to farm or what I should be doing on my property. I've started with just a simplistic letter to landowners to kind of gauge their involvement. Once we look at willing landowners, I then send them the map package. They're big documents, usually 20 to 30 megabytes, but they usually have been able to download them on a file share site, and then start to kind of engage and ask questions off of that. But my intent into the future would be to continue to share the information with any willing landowner that wants to. So I'd like to start with conversation and discussion with that landowner, and then if we have support, I move into the landowner package, and then we kind of go from there.
And you and I had a lengthy conversation last week in anticipation of this meeting about just generally understanding that the program's going to evolve, and that's something we're getting something started. As Supervisor Wickham said, it's great to see some cases come forward, some true operational projects, but no one should take this as it'll always be 75% cost share. It's always going to be whatever the case may be. This is evolving based on the balancing of resources and the balancing of demand and the balancing of scoring and priorities. And if we have landowners that haven't been identified yet, is that because they don't have a need, or because we lack the resources and human capital to get it all done? So you know, we're not saying this is the way the program's always going to be. It's just, this is the first project coming forward. So, you know, inside that context, I support this too. I'd like to see us spend the resources in this fiscal year so that we have something that you know, I don't want to lose the opportunity to put additional funding into our watershed program. So all of that being said, I support this too, but the further development, you know, what do we need to do next to make it better, more equitable? You know, all the things, bigger, bolder, all those things are part of the ongoing conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, you know, as we engage next Friday, we have a Dubuque County Farmer Field Day. You know, that's an opportunity to try and, you know, discuss and share what programs are available. I'll be there talking about that a little bit. Hopefully we can get some farmers to attend. I know it's a really busy time of year. We're still hopeful that, you know, Tim Daly is going to showcase some things that are pretty neat as it relates to planting green and so forth. So, but I think it's the website is about to be launched. We're really close. We're just waiting on a few things. I'm trying to get a dashboard set up on the website that showcases what Dubuque County has been working on, how many acres we're impacting and have a direct correlation with as well too. So that I want to say 2 weeks, I think, is going to be up there. The new watershed logo is done. We're waiting to kind of roll that out. So it's about building a robust program, you know, with all these different things tied to it. And the Eco Services Fund absolutely is going to be something that evolves and changes over time. And I think having more information out there so that landowners can get information that understand the Dubuque County Watershed Program more effectively is really about the whole entire year of establishing a new program. You did bring up something I did want to mention real quick, and that was the cost share percentage. This was discussed, I think, at past meetings that we've had, and I know the commissioners and I have talked about it as well in the last few meetings. Their recommendation and mine as well was to keep that cost share rate at 75%, which means, let's say NRCS, this project does come to fruition. We get to a 90% design phase. I then would come back to the Dubuque County Board of Supervisors with a full dollar funding request amount based on NRCS's engineered cost estimate, meaning that if the design and NRCS puts the dollar amount at $100,000 for the grade stabilization structure to be built, the Dubuque County Eco Services Fund would fund $75,000 of that. The landowner would have to support the remaining $25,000. The 75% rate, everyone does this a little bit differently. The federal government doesn't use percentages. They use flat rates, meaning they come up with a flat rate establishment of, for example, X amount of dollars per cubic feet or per cubic yard of dirt being moved and so forth. So they don't talk percentages. I think it's simpler and easier to provide a percentage to that landowner, knowing that they do have some, you know, their investment is going to this as well too. And research has shown that it's best to keep the cost share rate where the landlord does still have some investment in it. You know, FEMA projects, you can get into the 90% cost share rate. It's all about weighing the different, you know, weighing the different responsibilities of water quality and flood reduction and willingness and so forth. So right now, my recommendation would be to keep the cost share rate at 75%. I believe that we'll get buy-in and support at that rate. And then if not, I might come back and revisit with you, but that's where I'm at right now with I think our cost share rate. So thanks for bringing that up, because that's something I did not mention.
I think that makes sense as far as how you explained it to me. So I'm comfortable with that percentage.
I am also.
You know, I am, but
Eric,
you need to point out the obvious, which is of our, you know, I mean, the obvious, anybody who looks at the money. So it's, you know, we put $140,000 into our Eco Services Fund, right? And this landowner is going to come in with probably a project we're thinking is going to be $140,000, and we're going to pay 75% of that. So they're big projects, and this is, you know, that's why I'm cautioning everybody. I'm here for this one, but I don't think we want to do 2 projects a year at 75% cost share for all takers, right? So, you know, that's the dialogue that has to continue to happen. And when you're working with the Board of Supervisors, for good or bad, you have it like the sausage is being made right here, front and in public. So, you know, where we've got members of the public here to see how this happens. It's a big, heavy assist that the county is doing, and I'm pleased to do that. But it does look like one landowner taking the bulk of the resources. Just saying.
Yeah, and I think that, yeah, I'd agree. I think it's about impact and about where we can have the greatest impact. So, you know, certainly we need to make sure it's prioritized. We need to make sure the targeting is right. And then you have that impact. And you might just do 1 a year. I would rather obviously have 10 or 20 a year and spread that, you know, targeting over the entire county. And so that's kind of your job, Eric, is to identify. You said you had 100 priority. So hopefully out of that 100, we will find willing priority landowners. So yeah, I share in that, Supervisor McDonough. I'm not. It's the first one, and we want to look at it, and it is private land, but obviously water use and conservation and water quality is a shared venture. So even though the funds do go into a private property owner, those birds, the quality of the water, the other you know, environmental impacts are good for all. That said, my question, Eric, was one of the questions I have is, out of your list of prioritization, do you have any public spaces, any public property, whether it's a county, city, or local government, or even state, that came up on that list? That would be an interesting one, because that's where we could partner quick, government to government, and possibly, you know, make sure that the public's one approving it, but then you're supportive of it, I should say, and then move forward with that. So if you do have any of those public parcels that come across, I'd be interested in those. Don't have to answer it now, but in the future, if you do find those, I think those might be other good places for us to start.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would agree with that. And Supervisor McDonough, I agree with you 100%. Myself, I hope that, like I mentioned a little bit ago, I hope we get to a situation where we are using Houston's data, you know, more effectively, and also ranking and prioritizing projects because of the wait list and the demand that exists out there. This is all about, like I said, you know, creating and maintaining a watershed program that looks at where our most cost-effective return on investment can be made as it relates to these structural projects as well too. And we've engaged with 28 landowners that we didn't have last year in the Trutera program. We have, you know, 10 to a dozen landowners that are taking advantage of the Stormwater Outcome Fund and reducing nitrogen and phosphorus reductions that way too, and increasing no-till and so forth. So, you know, I think we've done a great job of setting this program up with a couple different avenues, you know, for landowners to be a part of. And I think right now this is a very good project to begin. But I think I'm hopeful that, you know, we can get a list and utilizing the Houston data more and more, you know, as we continue to dive into the data in the next year, in the coming years, to prioritize it as well too. And I think it'll be interesting to kind of dive into the data as well as we engage in our next discussion, our NRCS WFPO watershed planning grant, and to see how that starts to align with kind of our top 100 and landowner engagement and so forth as well too. I think that's kind of the next phase, I guess, for myself and the team to kind of continue this process moving forward.
I understand your concern also, and I honestly hope that we do get a backlog of people wanting to do big projects like this, but I don't foresee that probably happening. I mean, if we could get one project like this one a year, I think we'd probably be kind of lucky. And there'd still be some money for smaller projects, which I think you'll see people jumping in for smaller projects, but something of this size, don't see a lot of, there'll be some, but not a waiting list per se for this size of a project. So I think we'd be okay with what we have allocated, and we just, if we do get bigger projects, well, we may have to just say we're going to do one big project a year, and well, in 10 years, guess what? We have 10 big projects done, and we'll have a lot of smaller ones done too.
Eric, can you comment on what you've learned from Catfish Creek and those projects? So what give us the size and scope of those projects? And is there anything that you can share with us of what you've learned over those last 7 years of doing those types of projects?
Yeah, I think, Catfish has been, we've also, having, Brian Preston and the County Conservation Board, having their partnership on some of our bigger projects was key to kind of having, I think, landowners understand what the focus and the project dollars are all about. Our Catfish Creek Watershed Authority Board still has funding available for, cover crop incentives and soil quality restoration programs. And we're, it's kind of that urban rural balance of funding, or some urban projects tied into some of the agricultural projects as well too. Willingness of landowners has been difficult at times. But I think, like we've always talked, farmers listen to each other typically the most. And I think generally speaking, there's been support for projects in Catfish Creek, and it's definitely grown. Catfish has been a little bit more difficult, only in the terms of it's SRF sponsorship project dollars. So the flexibility of what projects exist out there and how they can get funded is a little bit differently. That being said, it's still a really good, the SRF is a great program. The city of Piasta is going through an SRF project right now, a water quality project. I know the city of Rickardsville has been recommended for approval for an SRF project. So it's a great program that continues to kind of evolve and grow. But in Catfish, the most important thing is developing your program and your connections and those relationships with landowners. And it's the same thing in Dubuque County. I think how we're portraying information and sharing this information is really critical.
Any further discussion?
Just thanks for all your hard work on this, Eric.
Keep moving.
Yeah, sounds good.
I appreciate the offline discussions too, Eric. I don't know that people realize, you and I will spend 30, 40 minutes and no problem at all getting the greater context that help me understand the documents that are coming in. So I appreciate all that extra time as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Are we talking about WFPO funding? Is that next in this work session, Ed? I'm not sure if that was on the same docket and how much time we have.
Well, we did approve the contract this morning, that resolution. I'll be signing that today. And if it's at the courthouse to be signed, did you have something you wish to address with us? This is the work session concerns the posting is for watershed program update. So if you've got something else there you want to share, Eric, you certainly can. You have more time.
Nope, I don't have anything. I believe after the contract is fully executed with NRCS, Ed and I have been working on an RFQ that would potentially be sent out in the next week or two here, I think. And that was it. I was just going to follow up and see if that was discussed at all today. So.
All right, very good. If we have no further questions, then no additional information sharing, I'm looking for a motion to recess until 11:15.
So moved.
I will second.
Motion is second to recess till 11:15. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. See everyone back in just a bit. Thank you, Eric. Thank you so much.
Thanks again, Eric.
Thank you.
I recognize we have another minute or so, but let's see if we have the necessary parties who can join us by video and audio. I see CJ May. We expect Sheriff Kennedy to make a presentation. I note Shane Bachenstedt is with us. Just kind of looking down the list to see who's going to be in the discussion. Dawn Sherman, I think you got a message back from Judge Shubat about whether he might be able to jump in. So just kind of looking to see if we have all the parties, if everybody is unmuted and going to be able to be part of the conversation.
Yes, Judge Shubat said he had a trial, a session at 11, but thought it was going to be a brief one. He did also forward it to several others that he works with, part of his team, if they're able to join us as well.
And did you notify all our department heads in any way, or are they just expected to have seen it on the agenda itself?
I did not send any separate notice out to them, no.
Okay. So I think we're missing several department heads in terms of any relevant information to them. Jay, I'm just doing just trying to see if we got parties here who we want to be engaged in this initial conversation. Is there any way to, we're missing almost all of our department heads. Do we have any way to send that out to folks to say Sheriff's going to be presenting on the new gun law?
I can do that here quickly.
Maybe we can ask the department heads that are on to send it to your neighbor, so to speak. CJ, are you with us as well? I just see you're muted in your dark screen, so you don't need to be on. I just want to know if you're live. Very good. Thank you.
No, I'm here.
Okay. All right. Well, it's 11:15 and that is the scheduled time for our work session. We are, I'm sure those who heard the audio are reaching out to see if we have any other department heads that want to listen in. I don't know how much information you're going to be able to share, Sheriff Kennedy, but it came up last week at a department head meeting. You know, some initial, I think some shock and awe is the word I'm going to use, probably inappropriately, but just the concern that July 1st, something might be changing in courthouse security. I don't know if the courthouse security team has met. That's a standing committee. So why don't you maybe just start building context for us, what you do know.
Sure. Did you want to wait a couple minutes to see if anybody else is going to jump on, or you want me to just go ahead?
No, that's fine. If we see any of our numbers.
I'm ready.
Okay. Well, I know Jay's been around long enough to know that the state tried to do this a few years ago, where they tried to shut down, or they tried to open up firearms into all political subdivisions, which includes our county courthouses. Not exactly sure why the state cares what our security protocols are here, as long as we're able to keep people safe when they come into our building, but they've decided to stick their nose into it. So, so yeah, we unfortunately this time they passed, or previously they had tried to shut down the, or they tried to open up the courthouses for people who carry firearms inside. At that time, we were successful in getting the Supreme Court to make a ruling that the state couldn't control that, as long as we were able to provide adequate security for our courthouses to ensure that no weapons entered the courthouse, which we have effectively been able to do, and we have been doing for many years. The state decided that they were going to take another crack at it. And at this time, I don't know that there's going to be any ruling in the same fashion as there was 4 years ago, where the Supreme Court's going to have the ability to step in, because they've written the law in such a way that has made the court say they're only going to be able to control the court spaces. So the courtrooms, probably the clerk of court's office and maybe the county attorney's office would be my guess, would be the only areas that you're going to be able to effectively say are court related spaces. And I'll let CJ touch on that if he has a different opinion on it. But anyway, so if people want to come down and go to the treasurer's office or the recorder's office or whatever, it doesn't sound like we're going to be able to prohibit them from carrying firearms inside the building. So we have not been able to have a courthouse security meeting yet. We are waiting to hear back from the first district to see if the Supreme Court is going to try to step in any way, and if they have the ability to do that. We have not received much direction yet on that, so right now it's still up in the air. But the way it stands now, if there's not like a last minute reversal by the court, the way it stands now, effective July 1st, people will be able to carry firearms into the building. It will be our intent, initially just having some initial talks with Shane. We intend on conducting security in the same way that we always have. We do not intend on changing anything. The only difference would be if someone shows up and is carrying a firearm. We've discussed, possibly asking them where they're going, and if they say that they have court, then sending them out to secure their firearm in their vehicle. But otherwise, if they want to go to the treasurer's office or whatever, it sounds like we're probably going to have to allow that. Unfortunately, unless the board has the desire to spend a significantly larger amount of money on security, we are not going to be able to have somebody post at every single courthouse or courtroom door and check people individually as they come into the courtrooms. So this is the best scenario that we have without having to spend a significant amount of money.
Would there be a way to move security to, I guess, by the elevator, to block off the section from the elevator to the steps, where anybody that would want to go upstairs would have to go through security at that point? Because everything upstairs would be court related, where there'd be no guns on second floor on up, correct or not?
Well, I mean, you got the auditor's office, you got the supervisor's chambers up there, GIS, so I had thought of that, but given those other, departments that are up there, I don't think that's probably going to be a suitable answer.
Yeah, we've also got the courtroom on first floor now. So really second and third floor, you're only all court. And just in basic discussions with some of the people I've had, the only way around any of this is those facilities that are strictly all court related. They're willing to take that chance and say, no, we are strictly judicial branch. You're not even bringing anything in here because this is all strictly court related. But we have that mix of county and court, so state.
Well, and I guess that's what I do want to better understand as we, look at this. We have many more buildings than the courthouse. And so, if we want to just let the courthouse kind of be its thing, right? And focus on West Campus. Are we saying July 1st that anyone who wants to carry a firearm into zoning that's going to be okay according to the law, right?
Yep.
Well, that's not okay with me, honestly. I have a lot of angst about that. That concerns me. I think our citizens, by and large, are awesome and great people. but there's the exception. And so, you know, do we look for a way to restrict access in that, in terms of, you know, employee area, public area? Because certainly we can do that, I think. So, I mean, that's what I'm really looking forward for, you know, high level security analysis, which is, I want to comply with the law, and I can't, and I guess we're all going to be in agreement with state's decision that people get to bring their firearms into all county, all government buildings. That's, I don't know what that does for private companies, but but what do we do? Do we institute bulletproof glass? Do we have security locks on our doors where there are key code access and those are restricted to employee? Does Westside Campus become one kind of general area where people meet behind a teller type window with bulletproof glass? I'm not suggesting that's the answer, but I would like to see that maybe we need to have more than the courthouse security commission. Maybe we need to be looking at this as higher level. Sheriff Kennedy, you know, Shane, what are you thinking? This interacts with all of our employees now.
Can I jump in with the question?
Of course.
So I'd like to understand before we react. So I have a few questions. So how many concealed carry permits do we have right now in Dubuque County? Estimated, Sheriff Kennedy, anybody know? Supervisor
Well, we
Potoff?
probably have
Thousands, right?
yeah, several thousand. I would say, you know, probably somewhere in the area of 8 to 10. If you give me a couple minutes, I can probably give you a pretty good number. If I step outside quick, talk to the staff.
Okay.
But,
So I think that's the first thing to understand, is that, you know, concealed carry has been with us for a while. And if there's no metal detectors at the door, there's generally no way to know if a public citizen is carrying. Would you say that's generally accurate, Sheriff Kennedy?
Yeah.
So we've been kind of dealing with this for a while. So that's the first thing that came to me, at least my overall assessment. Now, I certainly share concern of safety like Supervisor McDonough does, and so maybe there's some additional things we can do down the road. The other thing is, maybe can you educate us a little bit on the changes related to concealed carry and your understanding of the new laws that may be going through, Sheriff Kennedy or County Attorney May?
Sure. So my understanding is that basically in the state of Iowa, you will not need to apply for a concealed carry to carry a firearm anymore. The only thing you will need a concealed carry permit for is to carry out of state, and that's only with states that have reciprocity with Iowa, which is quite a few. But the other issue is when it comes to permits to purchase. Formerly, people would have to apply to the sheriff for a permit to purchase a firearm. We would do a thorough background check, and then we would issue them a permit that was good. Initially, it was 1 year. 4 years ago, they decided to make it a 5-year, and then now they've just totally gone away with it. So now it's going to be up to private gun dealers to be doing the background checks. You know, so obviously, you know, we have some concern there. You know, we understand that the people, the gun dealers in the area, you know, we feel that they're responsible people and that they're going to do the right thing. But you know, there are a lot of nuances to the law that you know, when we, you know, I mean, we do thousands of gun permits a year, and there's still times where I have to reach out to CJ's office to get a you know, kind of a legal definition on some of these background issues. The most notably would be people that are charged with a domestic assault, and then they take a plea, and the plea is for say disorderly conduct by fighting or violent behavior. The fact that they pled and were convicted of that particular section of the disorderly conduct code as relates to a domestic assault still makes them still disqualifies them from ever owning or possessing firearms. So, you know, are these and that's something that we have to go through an attorney. Now, I seriously doubt that these gun dealers each have an individual attorney that they're going to reach out to every time they get one of these little nuanced things that that they have to, check on. Because I mean, it's probably 2 or 3 a month that we send across the street. So.
And when does that law go into effect?
July 1st.
So generally speaking, as of July 1st, if you're a non-felon law-abiding citizen, you can conceal carry in the state of Iowa without getting a permit.
Yep.
And then certainly open identification of your weapon is lawful as well, correct?
Yeah, and that's basically currently lawful. So.
Okay, thank you.
Sheriff Kennedy, do you think it's going to impact the West Side campus?
It's hard to say. I don't know how many visitors they get out there. So it's really, and I'm just saying that, from my, I really don't know. Do they get 20 a day? Do they get 100 a day? I don't know how many visitors they get out there. So I don't know what the impact is going to be. The biggest thing that I think is going to be, it's always, anytime there's departments that have the possibility to have contentious action, that's always a concerning area for us, which was always why we were concerned about the courthouse. There's a lot of things that happen in the courtroom that are contentious and cause people to be emotional, and emotional outbursts are a lot of times where shootings occur, and so that's why we wanted guns to stay out of there. But I could see there's potential zoning. People get upset about zoning things. There's a potential there. The county roads, people get upset when their road has a pothole, or people are walking along their road and they don't think they should be able to walk on their road, and so there's a lot of
The county assessors out there, Sheriff Kennedy.
yeah, the county assessors out there. Everybody loves paying taxes, so I don't think that there's any concern about them. But yeah, that's another perfect example. Every time they do adjust the home values, people are upset. So there is cause for concern, but as far as what I think the risk is, I really don't know, because I don't know how many people go through those doors every day. So
Well, and in COVID, where it's COVID times too. So,
Right.
Another discussion is going to be how do we reopen the county campus wide. But right now, do we ban firearms from the West Side campus?
that's a question probably for CJ. According to the way the law is written, I don't know if you can.
The current law or the new law?
The new law. And technically, actually, the way the current law is written, because we don't have any form of security out there. The way my understanding is, the way the current law is, the reason we're allowed to keep guns out of the courthouse now is because we provide security there. We do screening, and we can accurately say that no guns are getting into the courtroom or the courthouse. So because we could say no guns are getting into the courthouse, it's deemed to be safe, and people are prohibited from carrying guns there. The fact that we do not have security at the West Campus, I don't think that we currently can prevent people from taking guns there, because we don't do any security screening there. And CJ, I guess if you feel differently about that, please speak up.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you, Sheriff, and I think, and I brought this up last week at our meeting, and because it's just been on my mind. Actually, Shane kind of had sent something out to Joe and I, and ever since he did, it's just been something I've been pondering, because obviously to see somebody walk up to the front window with a gun on their hip will be a rather different looking, environment, first of all. But I was going to do some more checking with the Attorney General's office to see if they had anything to add. But as I understand it, I think other than for the courtroom areas, which would have their own security, which is kind of what Joe was mentioning earlier, which we don't have, but nevertheless, the building in general, I don't think you can prohibit any longer. And so I think that's what causes me some concern. I mean, we are where we are. In the past, we've been able to select and say, no, the county courthouse or the county west campus, as the case may be, are gun free. And we've been able to do that. But I think with this new law, I think we can't do that any longer.
And I guess, CJ, just one of the things that I've kind of been trying to explain to people, when they're asking about areas that they're going to be prohibited, I've kind of been, or my understanding is any court-related area. So that would be the courtrooms, the clerk of courts, the judge's chambers, and then is your office also considered that?
I don't think so, Joe. I mean, we're lucky because we're locked off, on the inner door, but I don't think so.
Okay.
Right, but I don't want to overreact, but I don't like language when the county attorney says we're lucky. Right? You just said, CJ May, that you're lucky you have an inner door that's locked. That's what I heard you say.
For this
right?
office, yes.
Right, but your door has an inner door that's locked. I'm not lucky. My human resources people aren't lucky. The auditor's office, veterans, there's a lot of apparently maybe unlucky or not as lucky areas in the courthouse that give me concern if we have a new way, right? So, and I would like to have this time in our society to have some discussion about security of county personnel. And it should be, I think, extended beyond just the courthouse. Other counties have court buildings, and I know Lynn County said that's what they're going with. They've got a court building where juvenile court services, where everybody's in that court building, and that's where, so that is going to remain under security. That's going to be their way forward. We have opportunity to do that too if we move to an administrative type building. It shouldn't be discounted that we could also have the courthouse be for the courts. I can't do that by July 1st, but it's something that I would like to have some folks with knowledge look at to say, is that what are the things that are in play? What are the possibilities? How are other counties going to do this? I've been in courtrooms, not here, where they have a sign on the door in memory of somebody who was shot during a divorce. And then they get serious about the courthouse security, right? I was there with my sister during a divorce, not really all that comforting to know there's an in memoriam sign hanging there. So, I'd like to be looking at this as a checkpoint for us to be addressing security in the county buildings, assuming everyone's got good intentions, but maybe kind of raise the discussion some countywide. Good morning, Judge Schubert. I see you are with us. I don't know if you need us to step backwards or if you want to just present.
Well, maybe I'll jump in. So as a supervisors, a board of supervisors, we usually look for consensus. So otherwise it's just one supervisor talking with their wishes and desires. So I share with you, Supervisor McDonough, I would like to have a review of security where our employees are. So there are things changing. And so I think it's wise to review and see what our options are. Not quite ready to jump and buy a new administration building, but I think we should do a review and understand currently what's the state of play and, who has locked doors, who has security codes, maybe the overall amount of traffic. And hopefully we don't have to extend it all the way down to the Durango shop, but at least in the, top 4 to 6 buildings that we currently have employed. So I think that would be a wise and prudent step with some of the changes coming.
And obviously, Supervisor Potoff, you have extensive public safety experience. That's your career service. This is the first discussion of a new day.
Just jump out to Joe. We could keep security in place. Obviously, if someone comes in with a weapon, we can check the weapon to make sure it's not stolen. And also you could still do a quick background to make sure they're, not a felon.
Yeah.
It would hold things up somewhat, but if they want to carry it in, then obviously they're going to be subject to, having their gun checked to make sure it's not stolen, make sure if they don't have a concealed carry card, well, you'd have the right, I mean, just like if it's on the traffic stop, find somebody with the gun, we check the gun, we check their background, make sure they're not a felon. It'd be the same thing if you're going into the courthouse, wouldn't it?
That is something that we could do. My biggest concern with that, Harley, is I think, when this first goes public, I can see within the first couple months, people just coming down carrying guns just because they can, just to kind of throw it in your face, like, hey, you can't stop me anymore, and I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna do my business with my gun. I think you're going to have people like that. And I guess my biggest concern would be, I don't want to get in a situation where, people, and obviously if Judge Schubat or TJ may disagree with this, I don't want to get our people in a situation where they're accused of harassing people who are, legally carrying guns inside the courthouse. And, I just get very concerned about that. If it's their legal right to do it, I don't, we want to do what we can to keep people safe, but we also have to be cognizant of people's, rights to do that. And just to touch on, I know Jay and Hannah kind of talked about the admin building and whether that's a thing or not, going to be a thing or not. I don't know what conversations you've had with the other elected officials, but I understand that, like, the department heads, like HR and stuff, the non-elected department heads, the board of supervisors can basically tell them, hey, you're going to be in this other building. But I don't know if you guys have the authority really to tell the other elected officials that they have to move out of the courthouse if they don't want to. So that, and I'm not trying to cause a stir. I just want, to make sure that everybody knows that, before we go buy any property, we better have all these conversations out there. Because if John or Eric say, well, no, I like it here, I'm not moving out, then, we kind of did all that for nothing.
Well, of course, but what I'm talking about, and I think Supervisor Wickham is on the same perspective, which is it's time to gather to gather that committee. Let's move it beyond just the courthouse. The courthouse has to go in a whole new direction, at least in an assessment anyway. So let's find out what is best for us. And if the recorder doesn't want to move, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I'm imagining his employees might want to not be where murder trials happen, but I guess that's, we'll see what that is. So, and then the other issue is, if there's a different building, can there be different public spaces, and how can you secure different public spaces? Back to my original comment about employee spaces versus public spaces, control of the public space, employee space. There's lots of different levels here that need to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, if anybody would have saw this coming, the people built, they probably would have built the county west campus 3 times the size and moved everybody out there and done it at that time. Obviously, nobody saw this coming, and so we're kind of in the situation we are now.
We could deflect a lot of it, I guess, if you'd close off the hallway for the treasurer's office and open up the 7th Street doors again, and everybody going to the treasurer's office would just enter from the 7th Street, which would alleviate.
Well, they've got that courtroom over there now, Harley.
Oh, they do have a courtroom there, you're right, yeah.
So unless they put a different doorway in, which I don't think that the county probably is interested in paying for at this point. I don't know that that's going to be a possibility.
I
But a
forgot about
different,
that part of
right,
this.
and a different administrative building is something that there's some, there's certainly some discussion, or at least I'm having some discussion about that. We spend $300,000 a year on leased property. We have other employees, other spaces scattered around and about. We can have our IT director talk to us about that, but let's see if the judge has anything he wishes to say.
I was hoping that before our this meeting, I apologize for being late. I just got off another hearing, really couldn't change. But I was really hoping and watching the email this past week to see if I'd receive any direction from the Supreme Court or State Court administration on what the official response of the judicial branch is going to be. I've not received that direction. We've had this discussion before when similar legislation was passed in a previous incarnation. And, I think the judicial branch's position is the same now as it was then, which is that people may be able to bring guns into the courthouse because it's a county building, but they're not going to be able to, the policy of the judicial branch is they're not going to be allowed in any spaces or areas controlled by the judicial branch. So that would be the courtrooms, judges' chambers, clerk's office, court administration, and they just won't be allowed. Now, that creates a logistical problem, and I think that's something that we have to figure out is, how do we go about keeping them out of those spaces? If they're identified coming through security, how do we keep that person from getting into, this courtroom or that courtroom? We've got a lot of courtrooms now. So that's probably something that Joe and Shane and I and security committee have to talk about, just to see how we're going to, monitor those folks that come in. And, I heard some reference to, murder trial or criminal trials. I'll just tell you, from my experience, I don't know that criminal trials are necessarily the biggest concern. I'm concerned about custody hearings, things where, people's emotions are really running high. FED hearings, small claims where people tend to be self-represented. I think that most of the, if you look at the data that's out there on judicial security and safety, I think most of the tragedies that happen nationwide don't come out of criminal proceedings necessarily. They come out of those other types of cases, juvenile proceedings, again, where somebody's parental rights may be being terminated. So, when I'm out and about, people always ask me, "Geez, aren't you concerned? How do you do your job? Aren't you nervous about, those criminals or defendants that you have to see?" I'm like, I'm not really that concerned, about those. It's more so these other types of hearings that involve other types of issues. So yeah, I'm very concerned about it. A tragedy can happen here just as easily as it can happen anywhere. And I think we need to do everything we can to figure out how we're going to, keep the guns out of the courtrooms. I don't know if anybody has any questions for me. Those are the thoughts off the top of my head and what's been keeping me awake.
Shane, what do we have right now for courthouse? Is it just a courthouse security committee? Is that what's all that, is that the only thing discussed in that committee is courthouse?
It's usually just courthouse. We've discussed the other county offices, but like Joe said, like I said, even the current law right now, the only thing my understanding of is, again, CJ can correct me, but is all the other county buildings are open to concealed carry right now. The only reason that we can stop people from the courthouse is because we have the security screening and armed security in the building. I want to say it was probably 2 years ago. They tried doing it. Nothing really changed. Then about a year ago was when they pushed it again. And that caveat was put in that, well, okay, as long as you have a screening process and armed security, then you can still ban firearms. Now, this law obviously is changing that and saying, no, you can't unless it is a fully controlled court space, which wherein lies, like you said, as we had our discussion, Lynn County, they're a similar one because they're just a court space. They're saying, yeah, we're not allowing them in, but we don't fall in that category. As far as your other buildings, it's been discussed at meetings, but your only true way of trying to secure something is to have a narrow public space as you enter a county office, whether you have a wall with, like you said, your bulletproof glass or your screening or some access point where they don't have a big open office where everyone can just walk in, and that's public and office all in one area. Again, I've reached out to some people too, trying to find more on this, and we had our discussion, Ann, but this kind of came about also quickly. No one's had many discussions on it, from the courts to I think attorneys, other sheriff's offices. I'm reaching out. Everybody's looking for information right now, just like we are.
Right.
There'd have to be several counties that are in the same position that we are, that I would think would probably be willing to try to push this to the Supreme Court. Not saying it would do much good, but it's a severe issue. There's no doubt.
We have a lot of our department heads here as well, and they had robust discussion last week. Would my colleagues be interested in hearing? We have our IT director has raised his hand in chat. We have the auditor raising questions, facilities. Do we mind if we let this be more like a department head meeting and let those individuals ask some questions and make comments as well?
I'm fine with it.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Nathan, do you want to begin?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. So you have the proper lens of my comment. You should know that you're probably not going to find anyone more anti-gun on this call than me. That's my perspective. If you're not a law enforcement officer, you have no business owning anything other than a hunting rifle. So that's the lens that you should view this through. I would hope that the Board of Supervisors and the County Attorney's Office would sue to block this, tie it up in court, lead. I would rather you all be accused of overreacting than underreacting, get other counties involved, or lead solo. I would hope, I would implore you all take this to the Supreme Court, block it in court, do everything you possibly can to prevent this. Personally and professionally, I am terrified of what this is going to do to the government buildings, to the courthouse, until a tragedy happens, and then everything will flinch back. And I hope it's not a tragedy, but we all know where this is going to go. With that said, they are your buildings. I would hope that alone would make you fight for them. You know, small government, local government's the best. That's what I've been hearing from certain people for a generation, and we're being told what to do with your buildings. The second thought, since this train is leaving the building, I would implore everyone not to forget about Sunnycrest. I can't believe that they won't also have to apply with this. I don't know what that means for them. Danny has been here like a day, and now this is going to drop on her lap. The department heads and the people up there know that building better than any of us. They know we should leverage them, get their knowledge, bring them into this conversation early, and whatever we can do to help them. I worry about that building as much as the courthouse because that's a big facility and they're up there on the bluff alone. So don't forget about them. That's really just my comments on this. Thank you.
Auditor Dragato, did you have anything you wanted to ask?
Yeah, I just had a quick question on, do we, aside from law enforcement officers, do we currently ban employees from carrying firearms into the building or any county building? Is that a county policy?
Yes, it is. It's our workplace violence policy.
So does that policy then, question 2 would be, does that policy go away with this legislation? Can they dictate our policies or?
I believe most likely, I did ask CJ that to see if there were any provisions in it for us to ban it as the employer. And his comment last week was he did not believe so. So we would likely have to update that to take out that language.
And then not related to the first 2 questions, but I'm a gun owner. You know, I think that everybody should have their right. But as the auditor and the commissioner of elections, I have strong reservations with, you know, we spend as a nation undermining, saying that we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing with elections. We're energizing people to go out there and claim that everything's a fraud. And now all of those people, especially during election time, if they choose, are going to be able to carry weapons into our offices with our precinct election officials and our auditor staff. So down the road, I want it to be clear that the board definitely needs to take a step in the direction of being more cautious than less. You know, when Ann's talking about bulletproof glass, I think that's something that should absolutely not be off the table. And if we need to turn this into working through windows to deal with the public, then that's what we're going to do. But we have to maintain a level of comfort for our staff here. And that's what I got.
I think we should recognize it's not just, I mean, the July 1st new law, I think brings this right forefront. We have an actual thing to discuss, but you know, the civil society seems to kind of be over. In my term as a board of supervisor, I've been some pretty not nice people that I've encountered. So I don't know, do we have other elected officials or department heads that would like to offer information or ask a question at this meeting with the sheriff? And
yeah, I wouldn't mind. You know, I think there's some bigger conversations here that some of which probably beyond our control, but a couple of things that I have thought about as I've listened to the conversation is if we can maybe make some minor changes between now and July 1, like maybe putting in some lock boxes for firearms at the front door in case it's individuals coming in, concealed carry, open carry, whatever their choice is. Just the power of suggestion by law enforcement at the front door to say, would you like to lock up your firearm? Taking advantage of that, you know, I think most general public people would probably be happy to lock it up, not think twice and move on about their day. It's the people that are trying to just exclusively carry within the building because now they can. And that would be my second thing to think about is there's potential for security to have an approach that would be, you know, if John Q. Public comes in open or concealed carrying, we'd identify that at the front door. And would we have maybe a direct supervision approach that says, you know, we're not going to harass, we're not going to bother this individual, but the only way to confirm that they're not going to an area that is the judicial branch is to monitor their whereabouts within the building, minus any, you know, restrooms, that sort of thing. But yeah, through all common areas, they'll have a direct supervision with eyes on them, and until they're done with their business within the building, and then security can go back to wherever their post was. You know, I'm thinking that is stuff that we can tangibly do, you know, or at least discuss and figure out between now and July 1, so that on July 1, and in the short term, that we have some guidance and some peace of mind for employees in the building. Because I think as Sheriff Kennedy referenced, there probably will be somebody or some individuals that choose to use this new law to show that they can open carry, and that whether it's in July or August or September, it'll probably be sometime in the near future. And I think we just want to have some policy for staff to understand what the reaction will be by the county for the individuals that do this. And not necessarily that I'm advocating to try and sue, but as it was referenced by Nathan Gilmore, is one option might be a discussion with the Urban County Coalition, because that is going to primarily, they would cover most of the counties that this will impact. So that might be an option to pursue, but I think what I would like to see is maybe, probably from the security committee, is to identify what we can do between now and July 1.
And John, just so you realize that Urban County Coalition, as I attend those meetings Friday, there's been discussion. That's where, each Lynn County feels, in a bad situation. They've kind of been addressing this over the years. We are the county that's kind of got this hybrid situation where we have our administration and our courthouse blended. And not to say there aren't other counties, and we also have, staff at every nook and cranny. We have overflowed the courthouse into other spaces. So, there's other areas that are completely unintentional that house county employees without any reference really to security. There was no thought in renting spaces. I mean, I've been part of that, and I certainly wasn't thinking of security when I suggested a rental space for the city assessor, right? So.
This is Lori from the county assessor's office.
Hi, Lori.
Hi there. I'm representing Billy. He kind of knows this is where my heart is. So anyway, I've talked to Nathan about the possibility of doing something here on the West Campus where we can lock doors with the flip of a switch, a push of a computer button. That way, if we did have an active shooter in the building, at least we could, offices that weren't involved could hopefully be secured. And here in our office, we don't have anything to protect us as far as a wall that doesn't have windows or couldn't be shot through. But I've talked to Nathan about what it would take to get something like that out here in the county West Campus building. And I liked what Kevin said about what's going on in his world as far as the people hating the election officials and stuff like that, and for fear of doing your job right. We have the same thing here, and we all know what happened in September of 2014 in Jackson County. That shooting was, it happened in the Board of Supervisors office, but his target was the county assessor. The assessor has been the scapegoat for many entities since 1946. And the thing is now the taxpayers are believing everything they hear, that the assessor's office is the one responsible for spending their money, which we all know is not the case. But we do get the brunt of that, unfortunately.
I think, listening to everybody talk and especially when Kevin was speaking, one of the things that I think is sad about this whole thing is that, Dubuque is a large county. We've got almost 100,000 people, but it has always operated on a small county feel. You can go into the auditor's office and you can sit down face to face with the auditor with no obstruction. You can go into the assessor's office and talk to the assessor with no obstruction face to face. And I don't know if they recognize what they've done down at the state level, but they're basically taking that away from the people of Dubuque County. They're taking away the small county feel, and kind of one of the things that makes it such a great place to live and great piece of the state to be a part of.
Are there other department heads that have questions? Also employees that are present? Shane, what do you think is the way forward? from you, you're kind of charged with all of our courthouse security, and then I guess by extension, the county security.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. It's you've got to find out from everyone what the expectation is, what the county wants to proceed with, what we actually legally can do or are willing to go against if we find something that, you know, we don't want to stand by that. But there are options I think that we can discuss, and that's the point of trying to get some of these committees together. But that's what I've been trying to do, is just to push these discussions so we can actually start to get some clarification, as I have even the security staff over here are obviously a little concerned, wanting to know, hey, what is our directive? What are we going to be doing coming July 1? And the whole point of trying to get this moving is that it's not June 25th when we come out with some resolution or direction as to what we're going to be doing. So we all have time to kind of prepare for it as well, and can get their mindset wrapped around and make any adjustments that we need to do. So outside of right now, just trying to get, just like we're doing, some initial discussion from everyone as to expectations, and then trying to hopefully put together some type of either current policy, adjusted policy, procedure that we plan to do going forward, and how we plan to continue or modify what we're doing here for security at the courthouse and elsewhere.
So that discussion can happen too on an ongoing basis at department head meetings, right? That doesn't need 3 supervisors listening in. It can be done at department head meetings. As you work through these things, obviously our human resources administrators going to be involved and engaged in all these conversations as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can have security meetings. That's the whole point. Like it says, with COVID, we had been kind of stopped and to a halt as well. I've had discussions with Judge Schubot. I know Joe and CJ as well, trying to get these back up. I think this will help now that we have some of the elected officials and stuff in here, and everyone has some knowledge of it now, that we can try and push something forward to get something to have further discussions, be it in this setting or in person, if we have the space to do it that route. But just to continue these discussions to try and figure out what the goal and directive is going to be going forward.
Is there anything further from my colleagues?
Guess we're just gonna have to wait until we get some more guidance on it. Hopefully, hopefully we can come up with something that's gonna keep everybody safe at the courthouse. I'm a gun owner. I just personally see no reason that anybody needs to carry a handgun into the courthouse.
If there's nothing further, no further discussion among the supervisors, I think it's time to look for a motion to adjourn until next Monday.
So moved.
And I will second that.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. I hope the Courthouse Security Committee and the department heads go forward with this necessary discussion, but we will wait to hear further, I think, from you officially. So motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. That motion carries. Be well, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good week.